Soren had never thought much about destiny. To him, life was a chain of decisions, each one leading to another like an intricate web of choices. Some paths were lit by reason, while others were driven by impulse. But nothing to Soren was ever set in stone. That was until the day he met Terran. It happened during a diplomatic event, one of those official gatherings designed to solidify relations between humans and the Zyra, an alien race that had arrived on Earth 5 years ago. The world had been thrown into turmoil when their massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit, refugees fleeing their dying planet in search of safety. The arrival sparked fear and uncertainty. Could humanity coexist with these advanced beings? Would peace be possible, or would history repeat itself, filled with division and hostility? The debates raged for months, but ultimately, treaties were signed and the Zyra settled on Earth. At that time, Soren was a liaison, specializing in understanding human behavior, called upon to mediate between the two species. He had met countless Zyra officials, each one composed and professional. But the moment he saw Terran across the room, something in him changed. Terran was different. She wasn't just another diplomat. She was a force of nature. Her presence stood out, impossible to ignore. Her skin shimmered with a soft glow, shifting in iridescent hues like something crafted from the stars. Her silver-white hair cascaded down her back, framing a face that was both otherworldly and striking. And her eyes, those eyes, weren't simply beautiful. They were like galaxies, swirling with vibrant colors he couldn't even name. Soren, despite his training, felt a surge of something unfamiliar. He had been taught to stay calm in the presence of alien dignitaries, but as their eyes met from across the room, something primal stirred within him. He didn't believe in fate, but for the first time, he felt like he wanted something more than he had ever wanted before. Terran approached him first, her movements graceful but purposeful, like a predator closing in on its prey. She wore the elegant robes of her people, crafted from shimmering fabric that looked like liquid silver. Even from a distance, Soren could feel her presence, an invisible force that drew him in with every step she took. "Soren Maylis," she greeted him, her voice smooth but with an edge of strength. "I've heard much about you." Soren raised an eyebrow, forcing himself to steady his breath. "I hope it was all positive." Her gaze flickered with amusement. "That depends on what you consider positive." Soren was intrigued. There was something magnetic about her, something that drew him in, and for the first time, he found himself wanting to hear her laugh. Would it be soft and melodic, or bold and unrestrained? The thought was absurd. She was an alien diplomat, and he was just a human mediator. Yet, as the evening unfolded, they found themselves talking, really talking. She was brilliant, challenging him, asking questions about humanity, about why they feared what they didn't understand, why they clung to old divisions when the universe itself knew no borders. By the time the event ended, Soren knew he was in trouble. What had begun as professional conversations turned into numerous meetings under the guise of diplomacy. They shared knowledge, philosophies, and stories. But something else was brewing beneath the surface, an unspoken connection that neither of them could deny. The first time their hands touched, it was accidental, a simple exchange of a tablet. But the instant their skin brushed, a shockwave of energy ran through Soren, sending a jolt right through his chest. Terran had flinched, but instead of pulling away, she let the moment linger, her gaze intense. "You feel that too?" she murmured. He did, and though their bond was fraught with complications, both cultural and biological, neither of them could resist what was building between them. The challenges, different biology, the uncertainty of whether their species could even reproduce together, seemed insignificant in those stolen moments. They would meet in private, talking for hours under the artificial lights, their connection growing stronger with every passing day. Terran's fierce intellect, her unwavering confidence, the way she looked at him as if he were the only thing worth focusing on, it consumed him. He was a man of reason, but love, he learned, was never about logic. One night, beneath the soft glow of synthetic stars, she whispered, "Come with me," and in that moment, Soren didn't hesitate. Their union shocked both worlds. The Zyra saw emotions as secondary to duty, and their kind rarely formed bond with outsiders. For humans, The idea of a man taking an alien partner was met with scandal, fascination, and even hostility. But Soren and Terran didn't care about the rules. They married in a quiet ceremony beneath the luminous trees of the Zyra Enclave, with no grand celebrations, no cameras, just the two of them, bound together by something deeper than tradition. Soon after, Terran's pregnancy sent shockwaves through both communities. No human Zyra child had ever been born before. Scientists were fascinated and terrified. Would there be genetic complications? What if the child was something unnatural? But when their son was born, all doubts evaporated. He was perfect. He had his mother's radiant skin, glowing softly in hues of light, and eyes filled with the cosmic beauty of the Zyra. His father's sharp gaze and intensity marked his features. He was a bridge, a symbol of what their love could create. Something that defied the rules of biology, history, and fear itself. For the first few months, life was bliss. But then, one evening as they watched their son sleep, Terran turned to Soren, a serious look on her face. "One child is not enough," she said, her voice steady. Soren blinked in disbelief. "Not enough." Her eyes were unwavering. "The Zyra do not raise single offspring. It is unnatural. We must have at least 10. At first, Soren thought she was joking, but then he saw the determination in her gaze, and he realized she was completely serious. He had negotiated with world leaders, mediated tense conflicts between humans and the Zyra, but nothing had prepared him for the overwhelming weight of his wife's demand. 10 children, he repeated, as if saying it aloud would make it less impossible to comprehend. "Absurd," Talia murmured, tilting her head slightly as her shimmering white hair cascaded gently over her shoulder. "Yes, it is," she continued with a calm, almost serene expression. "It's the way of my people. A strong family guarantees a strong future. It's unnatural to have only one." Lucian ran a hand down his face. He adored his wife more than words could express, but 10 children? He could barely comprehend the idea of having one, let alone more. Human Azari reproduction had been deemed highly improbable, if not impossible. And yet their son, Kalen, had defied all odds. For Talia, though, there was no notion of impossibility. She saw their firstborn as merely proof that more were meant to follow. "You can't be serious," Lucian said, voice laden with disbelief. Talia gave him a long, scrutinizing look before gracefully standing. The soft, ambient light in their room bathed her in a soft glow, making her look almost like a dream. She moved toward the crib where their son, Kalen, slept, her fingers brushing over his tiny form. "When I was a child," she said quietly, not turning toward him, "I had 7 siblings. We were never alone, never without support. When one of us struggled, the others helped him forward. That's how we survived, how we thrived." Lucian swallowed, hearing the rare vulnerability in her voice. He understood why family was so important to her. The Zyra's home planet, once lush and flourishing, had crumbled under the weight of environmental destruction. Millions had perished. Those who survived fled across the stars, seeking refuge where none had been promised. To them, family wasn't just a choice, it was essential for survival. He moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Talia, I understand why this is important to you, but humans don't usually have large families anymore. 2 or 3 children is considered a lot." Her gaze met his, unwavering. "We are not just human. We are not just Zyra. We are something new." Lucian sighed, his resolve weakening. He wasn't sure why, but he knew in his heart that Talia wasn't demanding this out of stubbornness. This was her dream, one she had carried with her since the day they decided to be together. And truthfully, the idea of a big family didn't terrify him as much as he thought it would. Still, he smirked, trying to lighten the moment. 10, though? Not even 9. She smiled, a slow, knowing expression that sent a shiver through him. "No room for negotiation," she murmured. Before he could process the words, Lucian kissed her, his lips pressing against hers with a force that surprised them both. Every time they touched, it felt as though the universe realigned itself, as though nothing else mattered beyond the two of them. Talia responded in kind, her hands moving up his back, and when they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "You drive me crazy," he whispered. And you love me for it, she replied, her lips curling into a playful grin. That night, as Kalen slept soundly between them, Lucian lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Talia's request weighed heavily on his mind, but so did the possibilities. A home filled with laughter, siblings growing up together, learning from each other, supporting one another. A future where their unique family didn't just survive, it thrived. Maybe, just maybe, 10 children didn't sound so impossible after all. Days passed, and Lucian found himself filled with a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He couldn't fully wrap his mind around the idea of having 10 children, but watching Talia care for their son, he realized something undeniable. She was born to be a mother. There was a quiet grace in the way she moved through their home, adjusting to human customs while never letting go of her Zyra roots. Despite the world's skepticism, she remained unshaken, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she wanted. And what she wanted was a family. Lucian had spent years studying alien cultures, but nothing had prepared him for the complexities of raising a hybrid child. Kalen was still young, but even now, there were subtle signs that he was different. His eyes swirled with cosmic light, occasionally flickering in ways that made even Talia pause. His skin, though soft like a human infant's, carried faint bioluminescent patterns inherited from his mother's people. Doctors were unsure how he would develop, and if Talia had her way, they'd be bringing many more like him into the world. One evening, Lucian sat in their shared bedroom, lost in thought, when Talia entered the room. He had always loved watching her move, the effortless way she carried herself, the quiet strength behind each step. She had changed out of her ambassadorial robes, opting for the loose silken garments she wore at home. Even in simplicity, she looked otherworldly. "You're thinking too much again," she said, crossing the room to sit beside him. Lucian smirked, leaning back against the headboard. "How can you tell?" "Because I know you," she replied, settling beside him and draping an arm across his chest. He exhaled, threading his fingers through hers. "I just 10 kids, Talia. That's a lot. Are you sure about this?" She hummed thoughtfully. "Do you doubt we can raise them well?" "No," he hesitated. "It's not that. I just wonder if we're ready. We're still figuring things out with Kalen. What if his biology is more complicated than we think?" Talia silenced him with a kiss, slow and deliberate. When she pulled away, she studied his face as if searching for the swirling thoughts beneath his skin. "Do you love me?" she asked softly. He gave her a pointed look. "You know I do." "Then trust me, Lucian." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Trusting her had never been the issue. It was the unknown that unsettled him. Sensing his hesitation, Talia shifted closer, pressing herself against him. "Let me show you something," she murmured, before he could respond. She placed his hand gently against her lower abdomen. The warmth of her skin seeped into his palm, but what made his breath catch was a faint pulsing glow beneath it, barely visible but unmistakably there. Lucian's heart skipped a beat. "Talia," his voice was barely above a whisper. She nodded, her expression unreadable. "It's already begun." For a long moment, Lucian could only stare at her. The realization sank in. This wasn't part of the plan, but nature or fate had decided for them. A strange mix of emotions surged through him. Fear, yes, but also awe. "I guess we don't have much of a choice now, do we?" he murmured, his thumb brushing gently over the soft glow beneath her skin. Leora smiled, her eyes soft with determination. "No room for negotiation," she reminded him. Kai let out a breathless laugh, shaking his head. He had been resisting this idea, feeling the weight of it all, but as he held her close, feeling the subtle stirrings of new life beneath his palm, something shifted inside him. It wasn't fear anymore, it was wonder. News of Leora's second pregnancy spread quickly, and the reactions were mixed. Among humans, the birth of hybrid children had always stirred controversy. Scientists and politicians debated endlessly. Were these children anomalies or the beginning of a new future? Could they thrive in human society, or would they face endless prejudice? Among the Zyros, however, the response was different. Their people had always valued family, but they had never interbred with another species before. Leora's choice was unconventional, even for them, but it was also historic. Despite the controversy, Kai and Leora remained steadfast. Their love had already defied expectations, and they had no intention of stopping now. As the months passed, Kai became more involved in preparing for their growing family. He spent countless nights researching Zyron biology, trying to anticipate any complications that might arise. Leora, in turn, shared with him the traditions of her people, the way Zyron mothers prepared for childbirth, how they nurtured their young, the ancient songs they sang to soothe their infants. It was a blending of two worlds, a merging of cultures that had never intertwined in this way before. One evening, as they lay together beneath the soft glow of distant stars visible through their bedroom window, Leora rested her head against his chest. "You were afraid before," she murmured, tracing patterns along his arm. "Do you still feel that way?" Kai thought for a moment before shaking his head. "Not afraid," he said quietly, "just overwhelmed." She smiled, her lips curling with reassurance. "Good. That means you understand the magnitude of what we're building." Kai exhaled slowly, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I still think 10 is excessive." Leora chuckled. "You'll change your mind." Kai smirked. "And what makes you so sure?" She lifted her head, meeting his gaze with unwavering confidence. "Because you are human. You think in limitations. But love has no boundaries." He stared at her, struck by the simple truth in her words. Love had no boundaries, no rules, no limits dictated by biology or politics. Maybe, just maybe, neither did their future. The months that followed were nothing short of a whirlwind. Leora's pregnancy progressed faster than any humans would, something the doctors had expected but were still in awe of. Zyron biology was different, more efficient, more adaptive. By the 5th month, her bioluminescent patterns glowed with new intensity, signaling the arrival of their second child. Kai found himself constantly moving between diplomatic meetings, public scrutiny, and preparing their home for the arrival of another child. He barely had time to process it all, yet somehow, amidst the chaos, he found joy. He never expected to be a father, much less a father to a hybrid child. And now he was about to have 2. And if Leora had her way, 8 more would follow. "Do you think we'll ever get a moment to ourselves again?" Kai muttered one evening, collapsing onto the couch, rubbing his face. Leora, lounging beside him, arched a delicate brow. "Are you already tired, my love? We've only just begun." Kai groaned. "You say that like it's a good thing." "It is a good thing," she replied, leaning against him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Our family is growing. Our love is taking shape in ways the universe never expected." Kai exhaled, wrapping an arm around her. "You make it sound poetic. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to manage 2 kids under 2 years old." Leora smirked. "You will survive?" "Easy for you to say," he muttered, kissing the top of her head. "You have superhuman endurance." She chuckled softly. "Perhaps. But you, my husband, have something even greater." Kai raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" Leora lifted her head, her glowing eyes meeting his. "A heart that refuses to give up." Kai stared at her for a moment, taken aback. He had spent so much time worrying about how they would manage, about the overwhelming responsibility of raising children no one had ever seen before. But to Leora, it had never been a question. It had always been certainty. A certainty rooted in love. The day their daughter was born, everything changed. Unlike their son, Kalen, who took after Leora with his silver-white hair and glowing eyes, their second child bore a striking resemblance to Kai. Her hair was dark, her features more human. But when she opened her eyes for the first time, the swirling nebula-like glow of the Zyros flickered within them. Leora held their newborn daughter close, her expression one of unfiltered joy. "She is perfect," she whispered. Kai sat beside her, gazing at the tiny life they had created. "She really is." Kalen, now a toddler, toddled over, staring curiously at his baby sister. He reached out, his small fingers brushing against her tiny hand. The moment they touched, a faint electric glow flickered between them. something neither human nor Zyran had ever witnessed before. Leora inhaled sharply. "Did you see that?" Kai nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did." A strange realization settled over him. They weren't just creating a family. They were creating something entirely new. In the weeks that followed, their home became a place of warmth, laughter, and sleepless nights. The demands of parenthood were relentless, but Kai found himself adapting in ways he never thought possible. One evening, as he rocked their daughter to sleep, he looked over at Leora, who sat on the bed watching him with a soft smile. "You know," he said quietly, "I think I finally understand." Leora tilted her head. "Understand what?" He looked down at their sleeping child, then back at her. "Why you wanted this? A big family. More than just one or two." Leora's smile deepened. "And..." Kai exhaled, shaking his head. "You were right." Leora raised an eyebrow. "About what?" Kai smirked. "About 10 not being too many." Leora's laughter was soft but victorious. She reached for him, pulling him onto the bed beside her. "There is no room for negotiation, my love." Kai chuckled, kissing her forehead. "I wouldn't dare try." As he lay beside her, their newborn nestled between them and their son sleeping soundly nearby, Kai realized something profound. Their love wasn't bound by logic, by numbers, or by the expectations of others. It was infinite, and so was their future.